This scheme of splitting the city into effectively 5 ghettos where people can't move from one to the other without the risk of a fine is, to me, completely crazy.
This is Cal Smiles for Rebel News in the picturesque city of Canterbury. Canterbury attracts thousands of tourists each year for its medieval streets, its vibrant atmosphere, but more importantly, its UNESCO World Heritage Canterbury Cathedral. But I haven't come to Canterbury for tourist reasons. I've come here because it's been hitting the headlines for another major reason. So back in October 2022, Canterbury Council announced its long-term development plan for the city. This long-term development plan has many factors, but effectively provides a blueprint for future developments. The most controversial talking point is this plans for the Canterbury Circulation Plan. The Canterbury Circulation Plan, according to what they propose, actually splits the city up into 5 zones along major routes into the city and the city centre itself. What they are aiming to achieve is to make it a more pleasant place for pedestrians and cyclists and to improve air quality. The reason the Canterbury Circulation Plan is being seen as controversial is because it could severely restrict the use of private vehicles. So in the proposed zoning of the city, the residents of Canterbury will be allowed to use their cars within their zones, but when travelling between zones, they would have to take alternative routes. The idea is to construct a new ring road and have the traffic use that to go in and out of the zones. The whole system would be controlled by placing ANPR cameras on the entrance and exits of the zones and around the city. If a private vehicle went between the zones without using the newly specified route, then a fine would be issued. Council leader Ben Fitter-Harding, a Conservative, speaking with the Daily Mail, said, "The purpose isn't to declare war on motorists. The purpose is to make things easier. Congestion isn't sustainable on the trajectory it is on. I really hope that in 2045 people will look back and see this is what made Canterbury realise the potential it has. No one's movement will be constrained at all. It's cars going down the rat runs that will be stopped. For residents within the 5 zones, they can access the facilities within their neighbourhood by car if they need to, but if you want to travel into a different neighbourhood, the best way to do that will be by walking, cycling or using public transport. It would likely be a frictionless system, so there will just be cameras and no barriers. We'd fine people if they just decided, I'm going to drive across the city, I don't care." Mr. Fitter-Harding added, "We're not going to create physical barriers, but if you drive between neighbourhoods, you'd receive a fine." So Rebel News did reach out to Mr. Fitter-Harding, asking him, so why do you think the Canterbury Circulation Plan is such a good idea? He told Rebel News, "The Canterbury Circulation Plan is an intervention mooted for 15 years' time, after delivering a new bypass and junctions that will provide alternative routes for motorists. Our Regulation 18 draft local plan consultation has just finished, so the Council will now assess the results of this before coming back in the second half of the year with any further proposals." So to be fair to Mr. Fitter-Harding, he is upfront saying that if this is to work, there has to be alternative routes for motorists and that it will take time. So in theory, if residents aren't happy with the changes, they can democratically intervene come the next local elections. Some believe this proposal is progressive and forward-thinking. Others are concerned about the potential risks to freedom of movement and also don't think it's going to ease congestion at all. Many believe that Canterbury is also a completely unsuitable city for this proposal. As you would expect, there has been fierce backlash to the proposed Canterbury Circulation Plan, both in person and online. The mainstream media reported critics as saying it'll create ghettos and that the proposals were authoritarian and undemocratic, that it will add traffic and that it will be like post-war Berlin without the wall. Nigel Farage even tweeted out about the proposals, saying that they were something rather different. I wanted to understand why some are critical to what's being proposed, and I was fortunate enough to speak with Nick Eden Green, a Canterbury Liberal Democrat councillor, to get his take on the Canterbury Circulation Plan. So, Mr. Eden Green, can I ask you what your thoughts are on the Canterbury Circulation Plan?
Well, I think it was probably best described by one of my residents as being bonkers, and I think that would be my single word answer to it. It's a scheme that's based on what's happened in Ghent in Belgium. Ghent is a city which is 8 times bigger than Canterbury. It's got 9 park and ride sites, an extensive tram network across the city, and it's on the flat. The scheme that we're being faced with here is for a city which is so much smaller than Ghent as to be just not comparable, with hills on various sides where people can't walk or cycle. And this scheme of splitting the city into effectively 5 ghettos where people can't move from one to the other without the risk of a fine is, to me, completely crazy. Yes, bonkers, I'm afraid, is my answer to it.
So thank you very much for your time.
That's my pleasure. Okay, and to you. Many thanks.
What the councils say they want to do is to reduce congestion, improve air quality, and just make Canterbury a nicer place for pedestrians. These may be the stated intentions, but it's hard not to draw up some similarities with what's happening in the rest of the Western world. For example, around the UK, there appears to be lots of towns and cities bringing in policies that could be seen as limiting or restricting private vehicle usage. In Oxford, the County Council are set to trial a controversial traffic filtering system in 2024. On the Oxfordshire County Council website, they state, "We want to reduce unnecessary journeys by private vehicles and make walking, cycling, public and shared transport the natural first choice." In Bath, they are talking about unrolling what they call livable neighbourhoods, where again, access for vehicles will be restricted in parts of Bath. The Bath consultation on livable neighbourhoods stated, if developed collaboratively with communities, livable neighbourhoods can turn noisy, polluted or dangerous streets into pleasant, safe, healthy places to live and work. Measures can include modal filters, one-way streets, time-limited access, width restrictions and speed limits, although residents will not be prevented from driving into their neighbourhoods. In Bristol, the same livable neighbourhoods are being trialled, and on the Bristol City Council website they describe livable cities as they are safe, healthy, inclusive and attractive places where everyone can breathe clean air, have access to better quality green spaces and safe spaces to play and feel a part of a community. In their handout, Bristol Council go on to explain how livable neighbourhoods are created by removing traffic cutting through an area by the strategic placement of modal filters. Modal filters can be implemented using bollards, barriers and planters. They generally seek to prevent access by private vehicles but allow other modes, walking, wheeling, scooting, cycling, buses, to filter through unimpeded. In Norwich, there is talk of trialling 20-minute neighbourhoods. Lana Hempsell, a Conservative county councillor for Ackle, proposed a motion about the possible creation of the neighbourhoods at a recent county council meeting, which was supported by 48 councillors, with none voting against. A 20-minute neighbourhood is typically defined as a place where people can meet most of their everyday needs through a pleasant, fully accessible 20-minute return journey undertaken without the use of a car. Scotland is also thinking of the 20-minute neighbourhoods with the intention of reducing private car use. The Scottish Planning Minister, Tom Arthur, said the reforms which were recently approved would prioritise tackling the climate crisis and reaching net zero. In the borough of Hackney, the council has gone as far as to say they'll ban most cars from driving through 75% of its roads. They will achieve this using lower traffic neighbourhoods, which currently are often large wooden planters used to obstruct traffic and force vehicles to take alternative routes. So it's been a really interesting day here in Canterbury. There seems to be a mixture of opinions on the new proposals, but there isn't really much of a general consensus that the new ideas are beneficial or necessary. One thing is for sure though, more and more councils in the United Kingdom want to implement LTNs, and within urban planning there is a growing enthusiasm for what some are calling sustainable developments and 15-minute cities. Whatever happens though, private vehicle ownership is becoming more expensive and much more challenging. And here at Rebel News, we want to know what you think. Do you think this is a natural, organic, societal development? Or is this a war on private vehicle ownership? Let us know in the comments below. This has been Callum Smiles for Rebel News here in Canterbury. Rebel News UK is completely crowdfunded. Me and my producer got up at the crack of dawn to come to Canterbury to cover the most important stories here. So please, if you value everything we do and you want to see it continue, head over to ukreporters.co.uk, share all the content, but more importantly, if you can, please chip in at ukreporters.co.uk. Thank you.